You're listening to Healthcare Now Radio. Stand by for This Just In, the latest in healthcare innovation and technology trends with your HIT advisor, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in business, strategy, corporate growth, and innovation. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. For this episode, my 154th episode, we have a very special guest back again, Brett Hunsaker, who oversees the Southeast for Newmark Knight Frank, a global commercial real estate firm based out of New York City. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Great to be back, Justin.
Great to have you here. Brett and I have known each other for about 15 years now, but became close friends during a Metro Atlanta Chamber trip to Italy about 6 years ago. And trying to think back where the show came from, I think our wives suggested that we do this just because they're always entertained by listening to us talk to each other.
Banner.
Exactly. And just for my audience, just so everybody knows, we are very close like brothers, and therefore how we communicate can scare some people, but I always enjoy our lively discussions. I'm glad you're able to join the show.
And you got your hair done from last week. It looks wonderful.
Exactly.
Nice crop.
Thank you, my brother. All right. So we talked to Brett last week, and we're doing a follow-up show because he has just great in-depth knowledge and expertise on marketing, sales, business development, and I really want you to share your wisdom with my audience. And as you heard probably last week, Brett is also known as Mr. Shmooze and has been doing sales and marketing as well as leadership of sales executives for over 30 years. He's based right here in Atlanta, but primarily focused on commercial real estate. So besides being just an all-around great guy and a true sales expert, Brett is also the subject of a book by Richard Abraham called Mr. Shmooze, which discussed a little bit last week, but that is the art and science of selling through relationships. So let's spend about 20 minutes discussing a few key themes in the book. Let's have some fun. Last show, we were very serious, covering some very serious sales and marketing best practices for sales leaders, for CEOs, for business leaders. But this one, we're going to cut up a little bit more and talk about and through Mr. Shmooze.
Absolutely. Let's shoot it.
Awesome. So let's start off with some of your personal strategies. How important is the first impression? This is the one that I want to start off with. I don't think it was the very first thing that came out in the book, but to me, this was a natural place to start because it's a thing that I kind of focus with people and the CEOs that I mentor. How's the first impression important?
Oh, it's the most important. And not just that, it's funny. Giving a first impression is not about just talking about yourself. Yeah. It's absolutely listening first, and it's hard to do as a salesperson. You want to just start talking, and that's all they hear. They don't hear anything about themselves. So, it just goes back to me is if you listen while you make that first impression, which sounds counterintuitive, but we both do it all the time and do it personally, socially. It's the person that may have something to say that no one listens to, but that becomes so important to them as they build their career. And that's so I would just say the first impression, it is it, because then after that, and you have a first impression of me that's not very flattering, that you saw me,
you're Mr. Grumpy.
Mr. Grumpy back and forth, but I had my
focus.
My focus and things to do, and we all work it out. I mean, it's, right. but the first impression of you would have been probably more on the Italy trip. I mean, I think,
right.
So there's, relationships.
That's because
like
for 9 years you walked past me and ignored me.
Ignored you every day. That was my goal. And then unfortunately we were in a bus down in southern Italy trying to figure out how to get drinks.
Exactly.
So, and that turned out to be good.
And we were successful at that.
Yes,
very
we were very
successful
at that.
So when I read this in the book and saw this theme, what came to my mind beyond what I saw, because you're dead on, the first impression is everything, but even down to a tangible level for some of the people that I talk to now is be early, be professional, and you mentioned this in the book, very important, research, know who you're about to speak with, and again, listen. And the famous saying that I hear more and more today, which is great, is God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yep.
And just, again, do your research, and then when they speak, listen to their needs. They actually give you the answers to the test. You don't have to talk them into anything. You're probably going to talk yourself out of something much more than you talk them into something.
Well, there is no excuse now. I mean, back in the day, there was no Google.
Right.
So you now research. You can find out. Don't be a stalker. It's amazing to me how many people ask me about something that's personal to me because they read something and it researched it on Google or whatever. And literally, it's creepy.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, general nuggets of information, the research that you can gain now, you can almost tee up questions, but don't make it personal. Make it general. Yep. And I think you tee it up. The first impression is just absolutely out of its way. And yeah, to get to your point, I think you're trying to get on that. Being early is you don't ever want to be late in that first meeting, and I think also just. The dress code nowadays is very casual. I'm
but still dressed professionally.
Yeah, I mean, you got to overdress where you can. I think if the other person's down dressed, you'll know it on the second trip. Yep.
But also, you're never going to go wrong overdressing. I mean, really, you're never going to go wrong. But you can go wrong if you show up in a polo shirt and khakis and they're in suits.
Yeah, well,
that could hurt.
You overdress everywhere, and we know that personally. So
thank you for that.
You make me always feel just ugly,
uncomfortable,
just ugly.
Right, exactly. Now you just made me lose my train of thought on one.
Oh,
thank you so much for.
Maybe I should have been listening more.
Listening more, active listening. I spoke last Friday down at the Georgia Works group. It's about 75, 80 men that are homeless, been incarcerated, but trying to get back on their feet. Just a great group of men. And I went through about 40 best practices, no matter where you are in the socioeconomic status, 40 things that we all can do to be more successful in our life. And one of them was to be early, because you will beat half of the people that you're competing against just by being 15 minutes early to something. So you take half that competition out of the way immediately.
Yep.
So, and also then presses, and I promise you, if you're 15 minutes early to every single meeting, you will make more money in life. I promise you, I guarantee it.
You cannot lose.
Yep. So number one characteristic, and this is a good theme of the book, the number one characteristic that your customer looks for in their salesperson, what is that?
It's interesting, and again, I changed that opinion. I mean, it goes back and forth. As a person that I'm hiring, is drive. I think that the number one thing is drive. Matter of fact, Mr. Abraham wrote another book called Sales Drive, and it's really hard to teach.
Yes,
and I think to weed out people that don't have drive, and even though people show up early, they work hard, they stay late. If they don't have a certain drive, then they don't. The sales is not connected when it comes to that. So I think basically my number one thing I would look at is drive.
Yeah, and I agree, because when you have the drive, you figure things out. Because you keep running the wrong direction, you're still going the wrong direction. You can run faster, you can drive harder. It doesn't matter. You're running in the same direction. When you realize, if you have drive, you realize you're running in this wrong direction. You go and figure it out, and you fix it. What can I do? Ask questions. Who can I go to maybe figure out the right direction? And you have that internal drive to go figure it out. So I completely agree.
You got the clock. It tells you where to go.
Exactly. So another aspect, I think the book also touched on integrity. Is another characteristic. They're looking for somebody who is truthful, helps them, and has the integrity that they can trust. And I think that's very good as well. The book.
I agree. I mean, and again, the way the book does that is to put you in a situation.
What you're looking for?
Yeah, where you're looking for it. It's just that 100% integrity.
Yep. So this is another one. This next point, and actually this segment is not just for sales leaders. And I brought this up in our first half hour when we spoke. This is for anybody that is leading an organization. Every CEO, every president, every obviously business development leader, sales leader, marketing leader. These are all characteristics that we all need to understand and integrate into our daily work lives, because this is how you build a business. This is how you attract more funding. It's how you get funding, attract funding. Attract customers, keep customers, attract good employees, all these strategies that we're talking about today. It's not just about closing a transactional deal. This is about building relationships and getting people to invest in you so you're going to be successful long term. So this next one is exactly how Greenway, my company, my last big company, was successful. In the book, you call it service is sales. Sales is service. You need both. I couldn't agree more, but I know more than you do, know than my audience does. So tell me, audience, what do you mean by that?
No, I mean, I think you know it very well. Again, the service is without good service, good sales doesn't happen. It evaporates. It immediately evaporates. The hardest part for guys to give referrals is to introduce you to somebody else, because they're fear that you're going to screw up that relationship. So service, and the key on service I look at, I know it touches in the book and follows it, but something that I know you do too is follow up. I mean, you sell the pen, and then you just leave them alone. You never see them again. That's not it. You need to sell the pen and follow up every, literally in my mind, at least 3 times a year with big clients, letting them know what's going on with you, finding out what's going on with them, build the relationships up. And that's just part of the service if you're not involved in the service. Some entity guys will be involved in it. You'll actually sell it and then do the service. That's the best advantage because then it's all on you. But I think about 75% of the sales guys end up giving it to the service guys.
Yeah, disconnected.
And the key in organization, everything else, the sales manager and the service manager should be best friends.
Yeah.
They should be intertwined. They should be on the same bonus schedule.
Yeah.
And I find that when they don't have that, it's amazing because the service guy is going to cut things to save money, and all of a sudden the service doesn't happen. Yep. And I've seen a lot of accounts evaporate because the service wasn't followed up on. So 100%, I know you follow the same strategy with all the businesses you're doing. Is once you're in, you're not out. You're in for good.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is to leave behind is when you're a salesperson, you close that deal, you go with it, even if it's not part of your comp plan, quote unquote, you go back and you make sure that sale, because you want that sale to go well, you want the referrals, you want the references, you want the customer to be happy, you want to smooth through any issues, because there are always going to be bumps. It just happens in transactions. But build that relationship, and keep it going, because that will be your customer for life. Your customers, I know, they're your customers for life. And no matter what business you're doing, they're your customer for life. And if you have that, that is your retirement plan. That is your longevity. That's 20, 30, 40 years in the business if you have that Rolodex, as you say.
And by the way, you'll be a lot happier. I mean, because you're hanging out with friends. I mean, that's if you build the relationships and become friends, it's just a lot better life to live than, just always doing one sale and moving on.
Yep. And the next theme that I picked out kind of is on this same track. The number one reason why clients leave. What is it?
Well, I think the number one reason is that there's no follow-up. I mean, failure in the business itself is one thing, but the way I relate it, and I update my mind from the book. Now I'm seeing it's just follow-up. People do not follow up and get the business done the way they had. So I know you touch bases on that with a lot of things you do, but because you don't listen and figure out how to drill it back home and deliver what you said you're going to deliver. Yep.
No, and you also bring up a theme called the recency effect. Attention and service, and when they just don't get the touches, I think the example you brought up actually on our last show as well, is you might have a 3 or 5 year deal, and you may think, I got them signed for 5 years, I'm moving on to the next one, Sally and Joe. Well, you know what? Mike is going to start calling into your deal, so it's the recency effect, and I totally agree with that. So talk about the recency effect.
Well, it also it is interesting because there's statistically, I mean, everyone that listens today has 100% knowledge of today,
right?
And then literally in 6 hours they have about 80% knowledge. 2 days from now it's 30%. And if there's not a follow up and brought into the recency effect is to keep building that up, they literally, I think it's statistically in 30 days there's nothing. It's zero. There's no more knowledge of this discussion unless you follow it up and back it up and keep building it up. So basically that is the knowledge bracket that you lose the business because you're not giving them something that builds up that relationship and they remember you.
Yeah. No, excellent point. And I think this is where even in social media, you've seen people, in case you missed it, they use that acronym to highlight things from the past, because we do these shows, they broadcast live, they get promoted out, but then they're just out. And you're right, people forget. So what we do is we have people come back in and rebroadcast these shows, re-promote them on social media to keep them relevant in the recency. Yeah, no, excellent point. And for those joining us a little late, my guest today is sales and marketing expert Brett Hunsaker, a.k.a. Mr. Shmooze. He had a book written about him. Give me 30 seconds on how cool of an experience that was.
Well, it was a joint effort with the author. He's a great guy. He's a friend. And it was literally sitting down telling stories.
Yeah.
And not just me. It was a few other guys that he knows very well of just different things that you reflect back on that were really cool. And this is back before social media. I mean, this was a book.
Yes,
exactly. It's on audio now, I think. But, it's funny.
It's on Amazon. It's on,
yes. Yeah, back then it was just literally, this was how you built business and how you built relationships. And we had a good time with him writing it and figuring it out. And the story's based here in Atlanta. It starts off at the Ritz Buckhead back in the day. So it was good.
And this is what, 1936 you guys wrote this?
37 was when it first came out.
In paperback, that's good.
I'm not had as many facelifts as you had, so it's amazing how young you look.
That's great. Hey, perfect segue. Thank you for that, by the way. You talk about charisma in a sales cycle. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, again, it's what makes you stand apart. I mean, you just think about that in personal life, in business life, and everything else. What makes you stand apart? If you're the Mensa guy, and you're just totally smart, then you're the Mensa guy. If you're the drive guy and you're in somebody's face every time or whatnot, then you're the drive guy. But charisma, it does come in play with a lot of different people because they want to be around you.
Yeah.
They want to have fun. They want to enjoy themselves. They want to have something to remember. And I think the biggest part of all this stuff we're talking about is making memories. If you can make a memory, you win. And memories, by the way, long term, they either become stories that are totally fictitious by the time they're told in 5 or 10 years, or if it's bad memory,
right,
you become a bad guy. So, always strive, and that's one of the things when you just going out for a simple dinner, make a memory out of it. How do you do it? There's lots of ways, and we've customized that program. When you have breakfast with somebody and listen to them and hear about them, and they mention that their son or daughter's in soccer. Nowadays, it's easy. You go back to your office, Google the best 5 soccer camps in the U.S., and shoot them a note and said, hey, this may help when you're looking for your soccer camps or colleges or whatever.
Yep.
Follow up, and that's charisma in the point that makes someone feel good and wants to meet you as opposed to, okay, I'll take the meeting. They want to meet you.
Yeah, they want to be with you. Very, very good point. Excellent point. And this next one is kind of self-explanatory, and it actually fits the flow that we're speaking about. Another theme in the book, Mr. Shmooze. Are you different? So, tell me your take on that.
Again, that's kind of where we're going with that. What makes you stand out? And back in the day, I hired a guy that had no experience in the business to be a landlord broker, to lease office buildings. And the guy's now one of the top. Well, I think he might be the top guy in the city. And he was a professional football player, and he played offensive line for the New Orleans Saints. And just as far as being different, he came in and he's 6'8" and 350, and he's a professional offensive lineman. He's different. Yeah. He had different characteristics, and that again, when 2 weeks later when they're making a decision to hire someone, they're going to say, hey, what was that big guy's name?
Right.
Again, it just makes you different, or you do something in the presentation that makes it different. I've got another guy that his whole thing, he always wanted to go last because he wanted to take the guys, and he'd walk in and say, hey, here's a 6-pack of beer. You've just had 10 presentations. Let's talk about which one was best.
Right.
That's different. So always trying to differentiate yourself. I think it's hard. It's something you really have to think about. You have to do, or you have it naturally. But if you don't have it naturally, we're going back to charisma, it's hard. You just got to try to figure out things you can do to make people remember you and be different. Yeah,
one example, and I didn't even do this on purpose, but it was just serendipitous, and I know God had a lot to do with it, is I was at a HIMSS, the largest healthcare information conference. I was out in Vegas back in March, and that's exactly when Jen was going over to Italy to meet with the Pope. And then I was trying to figure out, how do I get there? I was invited to the meeting, but I just couldn't. I had back-to-back trips to Vegas. I couldn't make it out there. And so literally I was working in Vegas and doing my radio show, and I was talking through a lot of peers. I'm like, how do I get there? This meeting's very important. Well, I didn't realize 100 people heard me say the name Pope and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just trying to strategize. And so now I get all these follow-up. Did you go out there? Did you get to meet the Pope? I'm like, well, no, Jen went and Bernice went, but I just couldn't pull it off. And how'd you turn it down? And it became this huge dialogue. I didn't mean to be different. It's
something to talk about. No, I mean, really, it's something to talk about. Everybody wants to talk about the Pope. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to go. So
right. I'll go in November, I think. This next one I love. Explain real networking, and you even brought up the very famous salesman Dave Linder.
Yeah,
so bring up the Pals Network because I love this.
The Pals Network is something that back in the day I created because I was a national person and had people in every city. You can do a Pals Network here locally. It's basically people you go to that all know when you go to them there's an idea or a contact for them to make. It's basically LinkedIn on personal level.
Right.
So, I've got friends in a lot of different cities, but if you were going to go to Houston, Texas tomorrow, I got 2 pals there that will treat you like you are the biggest VIP in the world. And I think in creating the network over the years. This guy you mentioned, Dave Linder, great guy. He was in Raleigh. I got him a job there working with our company. He's since moved to Atlanta, but he became a client. I mean, he was running a big portfolio of real estate. So, and guys ebb and flow through that. So pals are there for a lot of different things. And, again, one of the things you'll see is, especially nowadays, but as these markets go up and down, a lot of people are out looking for jobs. Mm-hmm. The pals network's out there to try to help people because and especially nowadays, because again, everyone's not looking for the over 55-year-old guy that is later on in his career.
Wisdom.
Yeah, full of other stuff. But I think the best thing is the pals try to help each other out. So that's kind of the structure of it.
Yep. Love it. The next one is excellent, but let's talk about the simplicity of stop, think, act. Very simple concept, but very successful. Go ahead.
Oh, I love, this is something I came up with a long time ago that basically, and again, I would do this for my salespeople, and it was literally, and you could do it for yourself right now. In other words, you get done with this podcast and literally stop and think of something that you need to act on. And so what I would do is send out, this is for your sales manager types, send out, probably I did 15 things that I wanted people to accomplish. So I would send out email. Right now, stop. Think about your 2 best clients and act. Call them. Mm-hmm. So there was always something you could come up with, but in your own industry, figure out something that you can make an advantage to your people to do every day. Stop and, think about your spouse or your significant other and act. Go do something. Send some flowers. I mean, it can be in any part of your life. And I think that's the one of the things, and it's fun writing them up. I really enjoy when I sit down and write them up, and coming up with different things. And some of these people that I deal with are making millions of dollars. They some of them like them, some don't. My only point is if you don't like it, hit delete.
Yep.
If you like it, try it.
Yep.
So it's kind of fun.
No action. I implemented this actually last week with Jen. I was driving on the street, had a free second, and your point is actually don't wait for a free second. And I'm not saying I did this perfectly, but I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna send her a note just saying I love her and sending her hugs. And you know what? That meant the world to her. She doesn't like flowers, so I can't bring her home flowers. But just telling her, just stop in the middle of my day, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, sending her a note, I love you, sending hugs. And I know that she thought that was the best thing. And
maybe a new pool. Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody out there that wants to build a pool for Justin, give him a call.
We have to actually put one in. We do. Anyhow, but you already have one, so I can use yours whenever I need to.
No, that's why you need to get your own pool.
You need to get your own pool.
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you for that. But actually, I don't want to move on too quickly because it's actually a very powerful concept on how to differentiate yourself, begin to establish a stronger bond with certain people. And this all needs to come from a genuine place. If this has come from a fake place and you really don't care, you're not going to be successful in sales. Yeah, you're dead in the water. You're going to fail. So this is not about being fake and about doing things that aren't genuine. This is about genuinely thinking about someone. Hopefully, you care about somebody other than yourself, and you have genuine interest in other people. And just accentuate this. This gives you a very simple way to just stop, think about something cool or engaging with somebody, and do something about it. Because doing is half the battle. You just got to do out there. Show up on time and do. Make happen, and then you're going to just, you're going to beat out a lot of your competition.
And if you want, you just make it a simple, it's your 9 o'clock chime.
Yep.
Your 9 o'clock chime every day, stop, think, and act. It can be 7 days a week. It doesn't matter. You may want to read something.
Yep.
I mean, it does make sure that you are in focus with that. But guys that have salespeople, it's also a good way to, or all employees. I mean, it's a good way to get somebody,
Very
get
true.
a whole culture built on something they're all working on.
That's right. So closing couple of minutes here. I like the concept here. Are you selling features or benefits? So 30 seconds or so on that.
Well, that's 101. And Rick and I both, there's a book by a guy named Jerry Vass, Soft Selling in a Hard World. Benefits. Stop selling features. Get it down to numbers, and that'll win out 90% of the time. So benefit. Don't think features.
Yeah. What it means to them, not what it means to you. Like what's value you bring into them. That's a true benefit.
But also put it into a number.
Yep. Yes. Tangible.
I mean, get down to a tangible number. I think that's the biggest, the difficult part about benefits. They get mixed up in it. And also to have, and I'll say this as you're wrapping up, the number one thing I'll tell you in my mind about all this stuff is have a passion. Have a passion to do this.
Amen.
Again, whatever it is, if you're not into sales, then don't be in sales. I talk to a lot of people all the time. You're never going to be in sales. Be in marketing.
Yeah.
Be in administrative. Do whatever you want, but have a passion.
Whatever you have the passion.
Yep.
30-second answer. With today's polarizing political climate, how do you manage that in your sales and marketing process?
You know how quiet it is?
Don't do it.
No,
Exactly.
and that's
Yeah.
it. I mean, I think and especially in today's climate, or in any climate, whenever it was, I think the sales and politics don't work.
Yeah.
They don't mix. It's polarizing right now. It's one side or the other. There's no reason in my mind now, socially, if you want to do your own stuff or whatever, but everything you put out there, especially in sales, and we all tell our kids about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's
there for
it's
good.
there forever. I mean, someone's going to pull it up and see it. So basically, I'm neutral. I have very strong opinions of a lot of things, but in that respect, I'm neutral, and I respect if someone wants to vent about it, because a lot of clients or target clients want to. I sit there and listen,
Don't engage.
I do not engage my personal opinion on it.
Yeah. Brett, as always, full of wisdom. Thank you very much for joining me here in studio. I greatly appreciate it and taking your time out of your busy schedule, man.
Well, thank you, and thank Katie, our producer. She did a great job today.
Thank you very much, Katie. Awesome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it.
And thanks to everyone, since we're just thanking the entire world here. Everybody. Thanks for joining us. And please tune in weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific to hear our latest shows. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag ThisJustinRadio so I'm going to respond to your comments from the show. If you missed any of this episode or want to hear more, all my shows are always posted at Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Google Play, and TuneIn. Also, check out the new website that we've launched at justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a terrific week.